I look at this frustrated technician on the screen here. One of the most common things is people who bring their own parts don't understand quality. They don't understand the difference, right? There's entry grade or cheap import grade, and then there's professional grade products. When you take a look at almost any part for a vehicle, there's different grades, and they don't understand that. They don't understand the comparison. An example that I use is I can buy a pair of jeans at Costco for $19.99, Kirkland jeans. My daughter calls them old man jeans, right? Or I can go online.
They are, Murray.
I know they are. Or I can go online and I can buy True Religion jeans, and some of you might be aware of that brand, which are $250 US, right? Now, the quality is probably a little better than Costco, but I mean, how much better could it be for $250? The fit is probably better, makes your butt look better for sure, right? But here's the thing. It's about a brand, it's about status, right? But here, most people understand that. They understand the difference between practicality and status, and they make their choices along those lines. And I'm not going to judge. It is what it is, right? But when it comes to car parts, they see a brake rotor for 20 and a brake rotor for 100, and they assume the $100 rotor is a status rotor, as opposed to it's actually better. It will actually hold up longer, it will actually stop the car better, etc., right? So the consumer doesn't always make the best judgment, so we end up with a poor quality part. We end up with wrong parts all the time. I mean, one of the times that when I learned my lesson with this, I lost a hoist for a day. Seriously, a bay and a hoist for a day because there was a vehicle tied up on it, taken apart. Customer was coming back and forth with parts. I got involved. I was picking up and delivering parts. I was returning his part to my part supplier and buying the proper one myself. Like, it was just insane what time I lost in profitability. So they bring the wrong part. And of course, like I said, we tie up a hoist, we tie up a technician, we waste that time. And if you think about it, if everybody watching this thinks about it, how well does it ever go with a customer supplied part? I guarantee you it's a very rare time that it actually goes smoothly for all the reasons that I've listed, and probably even more reasons than that.
How much reputational risk is there here if that goes wrong?
That's probably the biggest catastrophe matter. Thank you. Right? Because the bad review, what would you rather have? A bad review that you did a bad job, or a bad review that you don't allow customer supplied parts? Which would you rather have? Because you can actually respond.
Definitely the bad review.
I'm actually going to show you guys a review that Natter hasn't actually even seen. He hasn't vetted that slide yet. But it's a really cool review of a guy that got a 1-star review because he won't supply parts. And I'll show you his response. It's very professional.
Love it.
So the job goes sideways. Now here's the thing. Mostly because an inspection wasn't done. We're assuming that the person knows about their car or knows what they want. So we do the job without actually inspecting or confirming the client's concern with that vehicle.
So, but why would the shop not do the inspection there, Murray?
Because they're making the assumption that the person bringing the car knows. Right. And you'd think it would be obvious, but here's the thing. Something that I'm very passionate about is that our industry was somewhat founded on what I call commodity price-based model, which is just get them in, get them out, get the lowest price, get as many people in to make money as a shop. Started back in the gas station days, right? Back when I was a kid. As opposed to what I call a consulting service-based model, right? Which is actually looking after the client's vehicle properly, charging properly for what we do. There's a very difference between the model. So if we assume the customer, and remember that training that we used to get in the 80s and the 90s? Well, you're too young, but the customer is always right. That's been embedded in our society. It's still there. The customer's always right. They show up with their own part. We just say yes and we accept it, right? As opposed to telling that person, listen, what we should do is confirm your concern. We should test drive it. We should inspect it prior to doing it, because how many times is it not even the problem that they think it is, right? They've got this water pump in a box that they brought you, and it's actually leaking from the back of the head gasket, right? The other thing that happens, and that's the beauty of digital inspections today, that you guys are all totally involved in that, or digital inspections is so powerful because now you can confirm with that whole process, or via text, via email with somebody, of how condition of that vehicle is in, right? I mean, you think about the old days of I would phone you up and say, hey, Natter, you need some control arm bushings. And you would say to me, well, what are control arm bushings? Well, I go, well, there's these control arms, which are these things that are by your front wheels that kind of do like they hold the springs, and you're sitting there looking at me going like, what's he talking about? Right? Whereas if I just send you a picture of those control arms and control bushings, you're like, oh, okay, I can see the cracks, I can see what I need, right?
Exactly.
But the same thing helps you with this. Now, the second reason that goes sideways is because the client is bringing their own part, they think and assume that they're trying to save money. So there is a whole assumption that we're cutting corners here, right? So they will bring you the water pump and then expect you to reuse the hose clamps. Or they will expect you to reuse the old coolant because, well, they don't want to pay for more clamps or more coolant. Well, of course, you guys know what's going to happen. If you reuse those clamps and they're stripped, it's going to let go, and now it's going to come back with a leak between that hose and that water pump, or even not even changing the hoses. If those hoses have 150,000 kilometers or 100,000 miles on them, those hoses need to be changed as well, right? And so then that's why these things backfire and come back over and over and over again, because the whole thing seems to be about cutting corners. And like I said at our opening, customers are going to ask for warranty anyways because they're out the money. They don't want to come back and pay that $100 or $150 or $300, whatever you charge them to do it. They want to pay that over again. So they're going to try and hold you to looking after it. But there's another, and again, back to the customer blames you. I think you guys have ever heard of an ever since, right? Ever since you touched my car, this is what happens. I mean, I think I almost got accused one time of somebody's dog getting sick ever since I touched their car. Way back, I got this phone call about this was wrong and this was right. Ever since you touched my car, this was wrong and this was wrong and this was wrong. It was kind of like, and your dog's sick too, right? And that's my fault. And they're kind of like, well, I guess that's not your fault.
Yeah.